Hare Krishna, everyone. Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to His Grace Madhavananda Prabhuji, who has joined us from Eastern Europe in Hungary, where he's preaching. And Madhavananda Prabhu doesn't need any introduction. He has been uh, a disciple, a very senior disciple of His Holiness Gaur Govind Swami Maharaj, and he's the managing editor of Gopalji Publications, from whom the Krishna Kathamrita Brindu, which comes every fortnightly, and you've been receiving it from our temple groups. He's expert on scriptures, and he has gone and mined and gone into many scriptures and come up with some very wonderful facts. So, as part of Lord Jagannath Shravan Festival, we would like to welcome Madhavanand Prabhu, who is going to speak on Srimati Radharani and Lord Jagannath, the second session. So without wasting much of our time and without further ado, let's welcome Madhavanand Prabhu with a loud Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you, Prabhu. You can go ahead. Prabhu, you are on mute. Yes.
Gauragraganya Ganagocha Goloruharam Gauranga Gurutama Gopyara Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachiya Dileka Kola Kahe Premananda Hemona Goranga Hridaya Dariya Bola Vaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Namare Jejana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Prana Re Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Bhidana Parama Pumarta Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopalan Svikriyat Kripaya Judi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pidva Rishi Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathabda Brajabala Vipahima Vanchakalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nilachalani Vasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam Jagannataya Te Namaha Kadachit Kalindi Tatavipina Sangita Karavo Mudhabiri Nadi Vadana Kamalasva Damadupa Rama Shambhu Brahma Madapati Ganesha Chittapado Jagannath Swami Noyana Patagami Bhavatume. So I want to thank everybody, especially him and Jagannath Prabhu, for having me here today. I hope you can hear me okay. I just came from Ukraine with there's 1,200 devotees with Niranjan Maharaj and Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj and some other senior devotees, and we were doing kirtan and speaking katha there for a week, and it was really amazing. And actually the presiding deities there too, with Jagannath, Baladi, Subhadra, very wonderfully. So I want to speak a little something today about a subject matter which we've been researching for many years. We have a branch of the Bhaktivedanta Research Center in Jagannath Puri, which somehow I'm the director of, which we call GORA, the Gaudiya Odia Research Association. And we're working on a number of things right now, including a commentary on Jagannath Ashtakam and also cataloging all the different ancient temples in Jagannath Puri and some similar works. Anyway, a question comes when we contemplate Lord Jagannath. Question should come that Jagannath is a worshipful deity of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We can give many different pramanas to support that. One of which is, if you look through the biographies of Mahaprabhu, I've gone through all of them in contemporary ones that we know of, the main biographies. And Jagannath is mentioned like thousands of times. Tota Gopinath is the next deity mentioned, maybe 400 times we found. But Jagannath is mentioned several thousand times throughout the different biographies. Jagannath is a worshipful deity of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, Mahaprabhu is Radha Bhava Dyuti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Sarupam. He's in the mood of Radha. And his only interest is in Vrindavan Bihari Krishna. So understanding that, a very important question comes. If we worship Lord Jagannath, if we respect Lord Jagannath, then Kotai Radha, where is Srimati Radharani? According to our Gaudiya Siddhanta, you cannot approach Krishna without Radharani. In Jagannath Puri, the disciple of Srila Gopal Guru Goswami, grand disciple of
Vakreshwar Pandit.
Vakreshwar Pandit, thank you very much. Is Dhyan Chandra Goswami. And Dhyan Chandra Goswami has written a book there called the Gaura Govinda Archana Smarana Padati. And he's described in that book, Vina Radha Prasadena Krishna Praptina Jayate. Without the mercy of Radha, you can never achieve Krishna. Therefore, Tatashi Radhika Krishna Smaraniyo Susamyuto. We should always remember them together, always situated by each other's side. Our Prayojanacharya is Raghunath Das Goswami. And it was Raghunath Das Goswami who was one of the very few privileged persons to stay in Jagannath Puri during the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's known sometimes as Sarupa Raghu, or the Raghunath of Swarup Damodar Goswami. And it was primarily Swarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda who were with Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira. And Raghunath Das Goswami, he spoke to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami about what he saw in Puri, and that became the Amchalila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he's also written about some of it in his prayers. And we could consider them to be something like an echo of Mahaprabhu's cries in the Gambhira. Just as if someone was captured during the Vietnamese, during the Vietnam War, and they were tortured, as some people were, they'll never get over that. And that experience that they had will mark their life, and you'll find some touch of it in whatever they speak. So Raghunath Das Goswami, seeing the ecstatic moods of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira, he must have been deeply touched with that. We say in Sanskrit the word samskar. Samskar, to translate into English, would mean samskar. Samskar means an impression. It means something which deeply affected us. So certainly Raghunath Das Goswami was deeply affected by seeing Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira. And that mood of Mahaprabhu in his bhajan is reflected throughout Raghunath Das Goswami's writings, and especially, you may say, in his sweet Swaniyama Dasakam, in his Stavavali. Raghunath Das Goswami is given 10 verses which describe the essence of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And I'd like to share with you, can I share something on the screen? Am I allowed to do that? I have to have some special...
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. You could go ahead. It works.
So this is text 6 of his Swaniyama Dasakam. Anadrityo Gitam Api Muniganarvanika Mukai Pravinam Gandharvam Apicha Nigamaistat Priyatamam Ya Ekam Govindam Bhajati Kapati Dambikataya Tab Abhyarne Sirne Kshanamapi Nayami Vitamidam. Raghunath Das Goswami, he says, I want nothing to do. I don't want to see the face of anyone who's Govinda Bhajati, who's worshiping Govinda, but they're a kapati, they're a hypocrite, they're cheating. They have this great pride, Dambikatahaya, because they're not worshiping Shrimati Radharani. Pravinam Gandharvam Api Nigamastat Priyatama. They're not worshiping the Priyatama of Sri Krishna. He said, this is Apinayami Bhatamidam. This is my firm vow. So understanding this in the previous verse that we just cited from Srila Janachandra Goswami, where he describes Vina Radha Pasayana, Krishna Praptina Jayate, that without the mercy of Radha, you can't get Krishna. Understanding this mood of Raghunath Das Goswami, who is deeply influenced by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then the question comes, Kotai Radha, or as you may say in Oriya, Keunti Radha, where is Radha? So we did some research on this, and we found Radha is there. But let's go back again to Raghunath Das Goswami. In text 7 of his Stavavali, he speaks in even a stronger way than the previous verse. He says, Sada Radha Krishna Chaladatu Lakela Stala Yugam Brajam Santya Jaitad Yuga Virahitopi Trutimapi Punadwara Vacham Yadupatim Api Proda Vibhavai Sparantam Tadvacha Api Chanahi Chalam Ikshitam Api. He says that even if somehow I get an email from Krishna in Dwarka, and Krishna's saying, hey, Raghunath Das, I want you to come here right now. Raghunath Das Goswami says, I won't go there unless I know Shrimati Radharani is there. He says in the following verse after this, but if I hear that Radharani is somehow in some madness, she's gone to Dwarka, even if she doesn't call me, Raghunath Das Goswami says, then I'll go running to that place. The Madhai Radha Spurati Harina Slista Hridaya Sputam Dvara Vacham Iti Yadi Srinomi Shutitate Tadaham Tata Vodita Matipatami Brajapurat Samudhiya Swanta Dika Gatika Gindrad Apijavat. But if I hear that somehow Radha has become unmada. She's become completely mad. And for some reason, she's gone to Dwarka. Then he says immediately, without any hesitation, I'll leave Vrindavan and I'll fly to that place faster than Garuda can fly. So this is the mood of Gaudiya Vaishnavas. This indeed is a mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But understanding that is such a great mystery, isn't it? Understanding this point then, where is Radha? If Radha is so important to Gaudiya Vaishnavas, as Jagannath Das Goswami says, we're not interested in any place, any deity, even Krishna himself, if he personally calls us, we don't want to go there. Shrimati Radharani is not there. So if you see Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, we don't see any deity of Radha. There's no Radha next to him. I'd like to discuss a little something about this. First of all, let's look at some mundane history. One of my teachers for many years was Professor Fakir Mohan Prabhu. He was a professor at the Utkal University in Bhubaneswar, and he was the world's foremost authority on Gaudiya Odia literature and the footprints of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Orissa. And he grew up in a Gaudiya Vaishnava family. Actually, he was a close friend of my Guru Maharaj as a child. And he did some research about the origins of Radha worship. And he pointed out, now this is based on secular history. We're not speaking about the writings of the six Goswamis. We're not speaking about Nitya Leela. But in terms of secular history, it wasn't before the later part of the 16th century, the late 1500s, that there was worship in Braj of the deity form of Radha. Prior to that, they would worship Radharani with mantra, but Radharani wasn't physically present in the form of a deity. It was a Bhakti Ratnakar by Narahari Chakravarti Thakur, a wonderful book, Gaudiya Vaishnava History, which was later published by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bengali book, which describes that Radharani was not being worshipped with Govinda Ji and Madan Mohan when the deities were installed by Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. And her worship, as I mentioned, was done mentally with mantras. So it was in Puri, in Orissa, that Raj Purushottam Jana, who was the son of Maharaj Prataparudra, he heard about this. And the Bhakti Ratnakar describes that he sent the first deities of Radha to be worshipped in Braj. They came from Orissa to be worshipped for Govindaji and Madan Mohan. When the deities arrived, Madan Mohan came in a dream to his pujari, and he told him, he said, actually, the big deity is Lalita, but the king sent it, thinking it was Radha, sent it as a deity for Govinda. So you should bring both these deities and install the small one as Radha on my left side and the larger one as Lalita on my right side. Krishna's very tricky. So after that dream, the sevak, the pujari of Madan Mohan, he did that accordingly. Then later, when Maharaj Purushottam Jana heard what had happened with the two deities he sent to Braj, and that as a result, Govindaji was still being worshipped without Radha, he was very, very unhappy. Vina Radha Prasadena, Krishna Praptina Jayate. Because without Radha, we can't approach Krishna. So he didn't know what to do. Now, many generations prior to that, there was a Brahmin who appropriately, his name was Brishabhanu. And he was living appropriately in a suburb, an area of Cuttack called Radhanagar, which is in kind of the Krishna Nagar area. At that time, Cuttack was the capital of Odisha. And he, very appropriately, his name was Brishabhanu, living in Radhanagar. He had a deity of Radha in his home. And he was worshiping that deity, very appropriately, like his daughter. And it's not mentioned, but we know that the king of Puri at that time, he heard about that deity, and he went for darshan. And later he went back to his palace. And then Srimati Radharani came to him in a dream and told him that I want you to bring me from Radhanagar, and I want you to install me in the Chakrabeda. The Chakrabeda is the boundary wall, that huge boundary wall around the Jagannath temple. So someone can correct me, but I believe that was erected about 1,000 years ago when the main part of the temple was built. So quite a long time ago. And the king very happily did that on the inside of the wall. They made a temple. But over the time, people forgot that it was a deity of Radha, the Chakrabeda, and they started worshiping her as Lakshmi Devi. So going back to Maharaj Purushottam Jana, the son of Maharaj Prataparudra, who was feeling very distressed that he'd sent 2 deities of Radha to Braj, and Madan Mohan took them both. And Govindaji had no deity of Radha there. So as he was feeling very depressed about that, one night he had a dream, and that Radharani deity of the Chakrabeda wall appeared to him in a dream and told him that actually I'm Radha, but they forgot, and they've been worshiping me as Lakshmi Devi. I want to go and be with Govindaji in Vrindavan. And so it was Maharaj Purushottam Jana who sent that deity of Radha to be with Govindadev and Govindaji. And then later we know when the Islamic invasion came, Radha Govinda and Radha Madan Mohan and other deities of Vrindavan were taken by the king of Rajasthan to this Amber fort near Jaipur. And around that time also, it's also significant history of Radha. The King Jai Singh II, he had this deity of Radha and Govinda taken to Gota. And at that time, there were many Sri Vaishnavas there at Gota. And they objected to the worship of Radha. They said, how is this you're doing this? This is not right. And they had 2 reasons. They didn't appreciate that you're saying that Radharani is superior to Lakshmi Devi. And secondly, you guys have no way to worship the Lord anyway. You have no standing because you don't have a tika on the Vedanta Sutra. And hence it was Baladeva Vidyabhushan who was sent by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to Gota to write the Govinda Bhashya, and his own Bhashya too, his own Sukshma Bhashya later on. And it's also significant to note that Baladeva Vidyabhushan is from the Ramuna area in Orissa. To this day, in Orissa, Radhastami is a public festival, public holiday in parts of Orissa, whereas in places like West Bengal, generally they worship Durga Ma, but in Orissa to this day they worship Radharani. And if you study the literature of Orissa, you will find, as Fakir Mohan Babu explained to us, and he did so much research on this thing, that if you see the literatures, the Vaishnava literature that was written in Orissa before the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's so much discussion about Srimati Radharani. So my Guru Maharaj, Sri Srimad Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he is a book we have, Embankment of Separation, which was a compilation of articles that he gave. In chapter 7, it's called Sri Ketra Dham. We just recently reprinted this book. If anybody's interested, you could ask him at Jagannath Prabhu, and I think he could probably tell you how to get a copy of that. I'd like to read you can see on the screen, something that he spoke there. Jagannath Puri Dham is known as Sri Ketra. Sri Devi is the Swarup Shakti, Krishna's internal potency. Therefore, that Dham, which is glorified by the presence of the Sri Shakti, is known as Sri Ketra. Shri means Sarva Lakshmi Mai Angsini Radhika. Shrimati Radhika, who is the source of all Shaktis. I'm going to jump ahead in the highlighted part. Those who are followers or devotees of Madhurya Ras can see that Sri Ketra is a Ketra in which Radharani's Madhurya Ras is manifested. Only such Madhurya Ras bhaktas can see it. Others cannot. That is why Jagannath Puri is known as Sri Ketra. And Mahaprabhu stayed there because he had assumed Radha Bhav. Upon seeing Jagannath, he would see Shyamasundar and think, "Oh, beloved of my heart." Therefore, that Ketra, which is glorified and influenced by Radharani's Madhurya Ras, is known as Sri Ketra. If you have the vision, you can see all the Leelas there. When Mahaprabhu stayed there, he saw Vrindavan. When he saw Chatak Parbat, he said, "Oh, Govardhan." When he saw the sea, he said, "Oh, it's the Jamuna." When he saw the garden called Jagannath Vallabha, he said, "Oh, it is Vrindavan." Mahaprabhu saw all of Krishna's Leelas there in Sri Ketra. Now, it's a separate subject matter, but a little related. It's confusing sometimes for devotees to understand the position of Jagannath Puri, partly because we find two things here. As Sanatana Goswami describes in his Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Paramaishvaya Bara Prakasha Lokana Sari Vyavahara Ramyam, that in Jagannath Puri you find Paramaishvarya, great opulence. If you go to Puri, you don't go to the Jagannath Mandir, but mostly they call it the Sri Mandir. That's where Lakshmi Devi is in control of things. And it's every year after Snan Purnima, or before Snan Purnima, let's start with that, that Krishna Jagannath, he's feeling so much separation from the residents of Vrindavan. Krishna Kund. Can I have some water? Just my cup here. That he, missing them, he wants their association, so he makes up an excuse. He says, the coming Purnima is my birthday, Snan Purnima, Snan Yatra, and I would like to have my public bath on top of the temple. That Snan Purnima day is a day in which Lord Jagannath was originally made by, or revealed by Vishvakarma in the Gundicha Mandir. And so Lord Jagannath goes on top of the wall, the temple. Perhaps some of you have seen that before, or perhaps you saw it recently on television. And from there, Jagannath's saying, now I'll have some relief. But he doesn't get relief. In fact, it's just the opposite. His feelings of separation grow more and more. When he sees Gundicha, which is Vrindavan, and he sees in the distance the Braj Gopikas. So at that time, in Puri, it's said that Lord Jagannath develops a fever. But that's not an ordinary fever. It's Vipralamba Jwara, or the fever of separation. And then for 15 days, they keep Jagannath in solitude on Avasura. And during that time, he gets special medicine. And what is that medicine? Some fruits and herbs from the forest like Vrindavan. And then after those 15 days, then there's Navayovana Darshan, the day before Rath Yatra, and then Jagannath comes out in his Pahandi. So actually, Srimati Radharani and the Gopis are very, very intimately connected with Vrindavan. In many places we find in our Gaudiya literature, particularly in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's Jagannath Puri is compared with Kurukshetra. Why is that? Kurukshetra is a place a great distance away. The deities are not the same. Everything's very different. We know because during the eclipse one year, Krishna met there with the residents of Vrindavan. And the gopis and the residents of Vrindavan were feeling so much separation from Krishna, they said, hey, Chalo Baba, we don't want you here in Kurukshetra. We want you back in Vrindavan. And so they pulled him with ropes in the chariot. And we say that's Rath Yatra. So what's significant, what's the similarity between Kurukshetra Leela and Puri Leela is the moods. We find in both places a mixture of opulence and sweetness. Now, generally, the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes Aishvarya Priti Sankuchita, that opulence makes love shrink. And as we're saying, Sanatana Goswami, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, says Paramaishvarya. And Jagannath Puri is great opulence, but he also says it's Ramyam. It's a place of great sweetness. In Kurukshetra, when the gopis saw Krishna's opulence, it didn't weaken their love. When Arjuna saw Krishna's opulence at the Battle of Kurukshetra in the form of the Virat Rup, Arjuna fell to the ground and he began offering prayers. Deva, Deva, Jagat Pate, O God of gods, please forgive me for my offenses. Dosha Kami, Moadami, Koroni, Jadas. Please forgive me for my offenses. Make me into your servant. It made his love shrink, even though Arjuna was such an intimate devotee. But the gopis of Braj, when they met Krishna in Kurukshetra, their love didn't shrink. Rather, it became more and more and more intense. This is a mood of Jagannath Puri. And in Kurukshetra, there's a mixture of moods. There's viraha and sambhog at the same time. There's different types of viraha and different types of sambhog, union and separation. Of viraha, the topmost feeling of separation is when Krishna goes to Mathura Dwarka. And the topmost mood of union takes place after there's meeting after that. So those feelings are there in Kurukshetra because the gopis are saying Krishna, but they're remembering, hey, you left us. We haven't seen you in so long. They're feeling so much separation. But at the same time, there's union. Samriddhi Man Sambhog, fully enriched union. They're feeling so happy. Finally, we're seeing Krishna again. But mixed with all that is another feeling. In a few days, we're going to lose him again. And he's going to go back to Dwarka. So, such a very, very intense feeling. And these are the feelings of Rath Yatra. It's interesting to note in this regard that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he once commented that, he said, shallow thinkers appreciate Vrindavan. But a man, a devotee of real bhajan, real divine aspiration, he aspires to live in Kurukshetra. And when he said that, people were a little shocked. And then he explained, speaking about his divine father, Srila Thakur Bhaktivinoda, and how Bhaktivinoda, after visiting so many different places of pilgrimage, he commented that he'd like to spend his last days in Kurukshetra. And he said, Kurukshetra is a real place of bhajan. My God, what is that? Why does he want to go to Kurukshetra? Why not Vamsivat or Radhakund or Govardhan? Why does he want to go to Kurukshetra? Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted to go there because he knew that that place is a place of the greatest need for Srimati Radharani. Radharani's there, but there's no Jamuna River, there's no Vamsivat, there's no Govardhan Hill. And so Bhaktivinoda, he wanted to go to Kurukshetra because he saw that Radharani's need there was the greatest. And where the need is the greatest, service is the most appreciated. Srila Prabhupada, he comments in Madhya Lila chapter 13, which is a chapter about the Rath Yatra in Puri of Chaitanya Charitamrita. We'll go ahead and share this commentary from Prabhupada with you. He says, after giving up the company of the gopis in Vrindavan, Sri Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, engaged in his pastimes at Dwarka. When Krishna went to Kurukshetra with his brother and sister and others from Dwarka, he again met the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha Bhava Duti Suvalita. That is Krishna himself assuming the part of Srimati Radharani in order to understand Krishna. Lord Jagannath Dev is Krishna, and Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Srimati Radharani. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's leading Lord Jagannath toward the Gundicha temple corresponded to Srimati Radharani's leading Krishna toward Vrindavan. Sri Kshetra Jagannath Puri was taken as the kingdom of Dwarka, the place where Krishna enjoys supreme opulence. But he was being led by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Vrindavan, the simple village where all the inhabitants are filled with ecstatic love for Krishna. I remember some years ago, we started traveling in Europe in some places, giving some classes. And it was in Budapest, here in Hungary, that the devotees requested us to give a talk at the Rath Yatra. Now, I'll be honest with you, I hadn't given a talk to non-devotees in over 10 years. I've been living in Orissa and speaking with devotees and traveling in India, so I wasn't really sure what to do. And I looked at the audience, because when you speak, you need to speak to a particular group. And I saw that there was very few devotees. It was all non-devotees, and most of them had not come for the Rath Yatra. That was clear. There was a gambling casino right next to the chariot, and people had come out from the casino to see what was going on, and they had their beers and their alcohol in their hand, and their arms around girls who I hope were their wives, but anyway, it's another story. And they were smoking and eating meat and things. And I thought, my God, they want me to tell them what is Rath Yatra. So I thought, well, let me watch what the devotees are doing. And one senior devotee came out and he started telling people, you can't understand this festival. It's very, very high. It's very esoteric. After him speaking for about 1 or 2 minutes, pretty much everybody started leaving. And then again, some crowds gathered, and there was some Odissi dance, and a lot of people appreciated that. And maybe they stayed for 10 or 15 minutes. So I was watching how many people were staying and how it was working out. They gave me 45 minutes to speak. And I was a little nervous. So I sat down on the stage with my wife, and I started off by telling them that I don't have any good qualifications. I'm from America. The only qualification I have is I'm married to a Hungarian girl who was translating for me on the stage, and they liked that. And then I told them that Hungary and Budapest is a place of great culture. And I also come from a place of great culture where I've been living for many years, and that's called Utkal, or Odisha. Utkal, Kala means art, and Ut means great, a place of great art. And I said I'd like to share with you an art form called Harikatha, which is a combination of sometimes singing songs, telling stories, philosophy, and things. And I said, so we want to say something about the meaning of this festival. And the meaning of this festival is that when the devotee cries for God, God cries for the devotee. And the purport of this festival is rescuing God from mechanical organized religion and bringing him to the village of our hearts. And somehow, for those of you who may know the book Embankment of Separation, then I told the story of 3 logs of wood, which my Guru Maharaj had told some years before in 1995 when he visited Budapest at the same Rath Yatra. And we couched it in terms they might understand, that same God who creates the universe, now he's crying for his devotee, etc., etc. And somehow in 45 minutes, not one person left. And the festival organizer, after we finished, she came over to us and she was just shocked. She said, "What did you do? My God, I've never seen nobody left." But anyway, our explanation about Rath Yatra was this point that Rath Yatra means rescuing God from mechanical religion and bringing him to the village of our heart. That's Vrindavan. So this is all very nice, and as Srila Prabhupada says in his purport, we can see that Srimati Radharani is present in Jagannath Puri in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But still, we don't feel completely satisfied with that. Why the devotees are going to worship Jagannath if there's no Radha there? Radharani's not there. Or is she? We did some research and we found some things, very interesting things. The first of which you may be knowing. This is the 6th verse of the Jagannathashtakam. Para Brahma Pira Kuvalaya Dolot Fulanayano Nibasi Niladro Nehita Chadano Nanta Sirasi Rasananda Radha Sadasa Vapur Alingana Sukho Jagannatha Swami Noyana Patagami Bhavatume. Very interesting verse. Para Brahma Pida Kuvalaya Dolot Fulanayano. That personality who's Para Brahma Pida, who's part of Brahma, who's the blossoming lotus flower, Para Brahma, the last limit. Somebody can please mute yourself. The last limit of transcendence, the last limit of the form of the absolute truth is Nibasi Niladro. He's living in Niladra, in Jagannath Puri Dham. Whereas interestingly in Jagannath Ashtakam, in the first few verses, it says that he's always living in Vrindavan. Here it says he's living in Niladra. That's another topic. Nihita Charano Nanta Sirasi. His feet are placed on the head of Ananta Sesh. And then he says, with great happiness, Rasanandi, Radha Sadasa Vapur Alingana Sukh, that with so much sukh, so much happiness, he's embracing Alingana, the Vapu, the body of Srimati Radharani. This is Lord Jagannath. We don't see Srimati Radharani there. In Los Angeles, where I was living for many years before I shifted to Orissa, Bhubaneswar, in the order of my Guru Maharaj, my service for many years was a pujari of Lord Jagannath, and I was bathing and dressing Jagannath every day. And when we shifted to Bhubaneswar, my Guru Maharaj instructed me that I should be the pujari for Jagannath in Bhubaneswar temple. Very special deity. That's another story. So many times I would see Jagannath as we were bathing him without his dress on, and there's no Radharani stuck on his chest. But this verse describes the Sanandi Radha Sadasa Vapur Alingana Sukh, that with great happiness, Jagannath's always embracing Srimati Radharani. So what does it mean? We find that there's some other references to Radharani's presence along with Jagannath and Puri. Perhaps, probably most of you, because you're the great devotees of Lord Jagannath, you may be aware of some of the esoteric details of the rituals involving the Navakalevaram ceremony. I had the good fortune to be in Orissa twice when that was done, 1996 and more recently, I forget the year, a few years ago when they again changed Jagannath's body. And it's a long, complicated thing. Some of the Daityapatis, they go, they have to have a dream, and it has to be revealed where to go to find this particular daru. That tree has to be neem. It has to have 4 branches, not 2, not 3, not 6, 8, 10, 12. It has to have 4 branches. There has to be the symbols of a Shankha Chakra Gada Padma on that tree. So many, there has to be other trees nearby, special certain trees. There has to be an anthill. There has to be a crematorium. There has to be a hill. There has to be a Shiva temple. There has to be a cobra living at the base of the tree. And if all those symptoms are not found, they don't accept it. as the Daru Brahma. So when all those things are accepted, then the first thing they do, they bring some different personalities with different axes. And the first is one of the pandas who brings a golden axe. He touches it to the tree, and it's about as big as a toothpick. The second is a Daityapati. He has a silver axe. He touches that to the tree. And then the third is one of the descendants they consider a Vishvakarma. And he comes with an iron axe. He does the hard work. He cuts the tree down, cuts all the branches off, takes off the bark. They perform Purushashuta, Abhishek over the deity, over the log, I should say. And then at that time, they have a Nyasa ceremony. Nyasa in the ritual of prana pratishta, or deity installation, that Nyasa is that mantra which gives identity to the deity. The deity's already there. The form is already there. You go to Lloyd Bazaar, you see the deity of Krishna. But that form, the pujari still gives an identity, gives chants a mantra, Krishna mantra, you are Krishna. And he'll chant that mantra so many times, it's called Sodanyasa, over the form of that deity, to give some identity of it. So we managed to find out what was the Sodanyasa mantra for Lord Jagannath during the Navakalavram ceremony. And I'd like to share this verse with you. Very little known verse. Even the Pandits and Puri mostly don't know this verse. So my voice is so bad today. Smerasham kumkumabam spuradadada patapanta kliptafa gundatam. Ramyam Vesinavani Krita Chikara Shikalambi Padmam Kishorim Tarjan Angushta Yukta Harimukha Kamale Yunjatim Nagavali Parnam Karna Yatakshim Tribhuvana Ruchiram Radhikam Bhavayami. This is the Nyasa mantra for Lord Jagannath. Just as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is externally Radha Bhava Duti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Surupam. He's Krishna on the inside, but Radha on the outside. Or in the language of my Guru Maharaj, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna Viraha Vidura Rup. He's the embodiment of separation from Krishna. So in the same way, Lord Jagannath is Radha Viraha Vidura Rup, or the embodiment of separation from Srimati Radharani. And Krishna is on the outside, just the opposite of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's Jagannath, Kaliya, the black one, Chakadola, Jagannath with big eyes on the outside. But on the inside, Radhikam Bhavayami. When we meditate this Sodanyasa mantra, giving the identity to Lord Jagannath is a Radha mantra. I meditate on Radhika, who's the most beautiful girl in the three worlds. She has a smile on her face, and her complexion is the color of kumkum. Her veil is made with the border of a splendid lower cloth. Her dress is delightful, and a lotus hangs at the end of her braid. She appears wonderful in her fresh youth, and her eyes extend to her ears. With her thumb and index finger, she's placing a betel leaf into the lotus mouth of Hari. This is Lord Jagannath. Srimati Radharani is there. Rasanandi Radha Sadasa Vapuralingara Sukhi. He's always embracing Radharani on the inside. Now we found yet some more evidence of Radharani's connection with Lord Jagannath. We found that Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, although they're the main deities, the four main deities in the altar, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, and Sudarshan, there are a number of other deities. Amongst them is a very small deity. Very few devotees know about. The deity is made out of solid gold. It's called the Shayana Vigraha. And that deity, it has a very simple service. He's long different from Jagannath. And when the pujaris want to put Jagannath to rest, they take that Shayana Vigraha, or the deity who sleeps, and they lay him down in the bed. He's just about the size of my thumb, I'm told, maybe a few inches high. That deity has a very amazing form. The deity is also known as Ardha Nari Ishvara or Ardha Lakshmi Hari, meaning half Lakshmi and half Narayan. The deity is a representative of both Jagannath, it's considered non-different from, as I said, and Lakshmi Devi. The deity has 8 arms. 4 hands of the Shankha Chakra Gada Padma, the symbols of Vishnu and Jagannath, and 4 hands holding a lotus flower, a mirror, a book, and a pot full of gems, the symbols of Lakshmi Devi. This is Lord Jagannath. Something very, very few persons know about. Also, that this deity of Jagannath, I find it significant in a number of ways. That the deity, his service takes place at the time known as Bada Shringara Besh. The Bada Shringara Besh is a time just before Jagannath takes rest, when the devotees come to have darshan of him just in the evening in his Bada Shringara Besh. And what is that Bada Shringara Besh? That's Lord Jagannath when he's wearing this cloth here. This is something that I was given by one of the Puja Pandas who dressed Lord Jagannath every day. And this is called the Gita Govinda Kandua. And there's verses written in Odia script on this. And this is wrapped around Lord Jagannath every night. Let me show you a photo of this. Let's see how I can do this. My computer's not cooperating completely. There we go. So this is Jagannath on the chariot because they don't allow photos on the inside of the temple. This is Jagannath. You can see how his tilak is a little smeared and there's a line of chalk around his eyes because he was smeared during the Pahandi when the devotees were bringing him out of the temple. And around Lord Jagannath here, you see the Gita Govinda Kandua. Now, we also spoke with a lady, special lady in Puri. His name is Nalini Patnaik. And Bengali name, interesting. But anyway, she has a special service for Lord Jagannath, which came in their family for many generations. She would grind sandalwood paste every day. And she would take and write different words from the Gita Govinda onto tulsi leaves, including the word Radha. And then every night, at the time of the Gita Govinda, at the time of the Bada Shringara Besh Darshan, this darshan here in front of us is photo we're seeing. At that time, when they dress Jagannath, they paste those tulsi leaves on his heart, and they decorate him in different places all over his body. Now, I'd like to finish with a song, an Odia song, very little known song, which we found some years back. This is by Madhavi Devi, who Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 4 most intimate associates. These are Roy Ramananda, Srup Damodar Goswami, Sikhi Mahiti, and Madhavi Devi. And Madhavi Devi is considered to be half an associate, not because she's paraplegic or something like that, or because she's a woman are bad, but because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a sannyasi. And there's no question of a woman being so close to him. But Madhavi Devi was a very intimate associate of Mahaprabhu. And we came across this song some years ago, which was discovered by some of the researchers in the Odisha State Museum in Bhubaneswar. And Sadashiva Rath Sharma, some of you from Puri may know of him, he translated this into some poetry. And I'm going to go ahead and share this song with you. It's a very beautiful song. And it'll give us some understanding about Srimati Radharani and Jagannath. Shri Nandanandana Se Jagabandana Chandana Charchita Anga Saksha Brajendra Kumara Sehari Niladri Bhavya Vibhava Sri Nandanandana, that person, Sri Nandanandana, say Jagabandhana. He's the Lord of the universe. And Chandana Charchita Anga, his body, his anga is covered now with sandalwood paste. Sakshat Brajendra Kumara Sehari, he's a beautiful son of the king of Braj. Niladri Bhava Vibhav, and he's also the very sweet treasure of Niladri. Pahuda Kalare Prema Ramonchare Radhanama Ange Jadi Prema Pulakare Gajadantavara Palankitanti Pahudi. Pahuda Kalare, at the time when he goes to take rest, Prema Ramonchare, with great ecstasy, great ecstatic love, Radhanama Ange Jadi, he holds the name of Srimati Radharani very close to his heart. Prema Pulakare, and he becomes ecstatic. All ecstatic symptoms come to him. Gajadatavara, so excited. Palanka Tanti Bahuri, and he sleeps on his bedstead. Shigita Govinda Kanta Padavali Kanduare Radhanama Premari Angari Darira Sabare Bilasa Karanti Hari. So they sing these wonderful songs, this Padavali of Gita Govinda every night. One of the names of Lord Jagannath, which is described in a plaque inside the Jagannath Mandir, was put there by Maharaj Prataparudra, is Gita Govinda Thakur. This is Lord Jagannath. He's the god of Gita Govinda. And he hears this sweet Gita Govinda. And this Gita Govinda, the kanduva, the cloth, which has the name, Kandurari Radhanam, there's the name of Radha on it. They're woven into the cloth with great love. Premar Angare Dhari Rasavati Vilasa Kanti Hari. And in great ecstasy, Lord Jagannath, he holds his kandua very close to his heart every night. Sehi Radhanam Krishna Priya Dhamma Kandua Moshiri Tahu Radha Krishna Nama Jivari Jarita Hoina Jivana Jau. She says, say Radhanam, may this kandua, may this kandua always be on my head. It has Radharani's name on it. This Radha Krishna Nam Jivara Jarita Hoina Jivana Jao. In this way, may my life end. Hoina Jivana Jao. And I just be chanting the names of Radha and Krishna. Madhavi Dasiku Bandhavi Vichari Karuna Koro Shri Hari Tava Shri Charana Tulasi Moshira Bhushana Kori. So then Madhavi Devi, she prays, Madhavi Dasiku, please let me be your Dasiku. May I be your maidservant. Bandhavi Vichari, please may I be your companion. Karuna Koro Shri Hari, please show mercy to me. Tava Shri Charana Tulasi. Please, you put your feet on my head. Let me have that tulsi that was adorned on your feet. Moshira Bhushana Kori, may that be an ornament on my head. So this is a little something about Srimati Radharani and Lord Jagannath. It's not a subject which is known by most people. It's a very esoteric thing because in Jagannath Puri, we find two opposites. There's great Aishvarya, but there's also great sweetness. Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan once was speaking and he said there's two considerations, Smarta Vichar and Goswami Vichar. And we find both very strongly in Jagannath Puri. Hema Jagannath Prabhu, you know better than me. And most people, that they respect the outside part, which is a Smarta Vichar. And it's only some very fortunate Gaudiya Vaishnavas who understand the Goswami Vichar. So we're trying to understand a little something of that today. And I want to thank all of you so much for being so kind to sit and listen to our mad presentation. And I want to thank very much Hema Jagannath Prabhu and the other devotees who organized this and being so kind to me. So I will go ahead and stop there. I don't know if there's any time for questions or comments or anything.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Prabhu. It was just outstanding, how you took us through your research. Some of these things you mentioned today, we never heard of, in terms of, how during the identity of the Nyasa mantra, Srimati Radharani's name is raised and is spoken so beautifully, and so many references you gave that can only be proven through the Goswami Vichar, in terms of how you end up doing research, and through your research into various different literatures, various different scriptures, you go and crawl, and then you get the best and nectar and give it to us. Without the kind of research the Bhaktivedanta Research Center, the Gaudiya Odia Research Association, GORA, is doing under your supervision, this is just not possible. And you mentioned something which touched everyone, I think, when devotee cries for God, God cries for devotees. So beautiful. So thank you so much. We have Balram Nitai Prabhu, who has raised his hand. Balram Nitai Prabhu, can you go ahead and ask? Do you have 10 minutes, Prabhu, if I may ask?
I can do that. If we can have about a 30-second break, and I can run to the little boys' room.
Sure.
But before I do that, I just want to make one little comment that I'm very much dependent on the Dambasis, like Hema Jagannath Prabhu. You're the real residents of the Dham, even though it's sometimes a little confusing when I sometimes give classes in America or different places, and some Odia people or some Indian people there, and I tell them, I don't know. Am I a Deshi or a Bideshi? Because I'm living in India, so I guess I'm a Deshi, but I'm a Bideshi living in India. But you're a Deshi and you're living in a foreign country, so it becomes a little confusing. But you're the real Deshi, the real Dambasi. So just a 30-second intermission for a second here, and I'll be right back. Thank you.
Sure. So, and just to sort of discuss a little bit about some of our upcoming Shravan Festival speakers, some brilliant speakers who are going to speak. His Holiness Bhakti Vinod Swami Maharaj is going to speak next Sunday. Don't miss that. He has come to our temple during Snana Yatra, and some of the instructions he has given us, we are still following till today. He is going to speak beautifully next Sunday. And next Sunday, we have Her Grace Nitai Sevani Mataji, so don't miss that. And after Madhavananda Prabhu leaves, we will have temple announcement by Krishnamananda Prabhu. So, Balram Nitai Prabhu, just hold on to your question, and you can ask when Madhavananda Prabhu is back from the break.
Let me make quick announcement. I had to run actually.
Go ahead.
Something. Yeah. Please join today evening for Sunday feast program, 5:30 to 9 p.m. at all ISKCON Central New Jersey, New Gulabdam. And Tuesday is Ekadasi. Tomorrow is Srivas Thakur's disappearance day. Very important. This whole week is full of important days to remember the exalted personalities. So beginning with Monday, Srivas Thakur disappearance. Tuesday is Yogini Ekadasi. Saturday is Gundicha Marjan. And I think Saturday is Gadadhar Pandit's disappearance day and Bhaktivinoda Thakur disappearance day. Sunday is Gundicha Marjan. Monday is Sivananda Sen and Sarup Damodar Goswami. We just heard Sarup Raghunath. So disappearance day. And then Tuesday is Jagannath Puri's Radhayatra. Tuesday it's happening in Jagannath Puri, and we are doing the same day in the evening, 6:30 to 9 p.m. Don't miss. This is the actual day Radhayatra of Jagannath Puri. So please take the full benefit and try to be present and bring your friends and families. So thank you. Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Prabhu. Sorry, Madhavananda.
So nice to hear you're observing Ratha Yatra on the same day as they do in Puri. The Pandits will appreciate that very much. It's very important. A lot of the locals there. So Hema Jagannath knows very well.
So, okay. Balram Nitai Prabhu, go ahead and ask.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much for enlightening us with the unique, traditions of Jagannath Puri. And one of the traditions, if I understand correctly, is the only temple in India where the deities are changed after a few years. Can you speak a little bit more about that? Because that's like a little bit difficult to understand. Yeah,
it's a very interesting phenomena. We of course want to see everything according to Goswami Vichar. And it is mentioned indirectly, I think, by Raghunath Das Goswami in some of his prayers, and he mentions, Sanatana Goswami, he mentions that there's a pebble inside the heart of Lord Jagannath. I think he calls it a Gutika, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, and that's the Nabi Brahma. So historically, historians consider it's about 1,000 years old, the Navakalavram. It's not mentioned in the Skanda Purana. It's not mentioned in any of the Puranas at all that we know of. It was during the time of one, and it's a long story about him, one Hindu, one person who was born in a Hindu family and later became a Muslim. His name was Kalapahat. And he came to Jagannath Puri, he broke the temple, and he captured the deity, Lord Jagannath, put him on an elephant, and took him to Kolkata, to Hooghly, and they burned the deity. And so there was one man named Bishar Mahanti. Bishar Mahanti was a devotee of Jagannath, and he knew about the Nabi Brahma, the life force of Jagannath. And so according to the local tradition, Bishar Mahanti carefully followed that Muslim group all the way to Kolkata, Hooghly, and they burned the deities of Jagannath, Balari, Subhadra. It was very, very tragic. And then suddenly, in the middle of the fire, this crazy man just runs and jumps into the fire, Bishar Mahanti. And according to the local tradition, he knew about the Nabi Brahma, the life force of Jagannath. And coming in contact with that, holding on to it, he was spared from the flames. And then later on in the day, the Muslim guards were shocked to see this fellow come walking out of the fire, no doubt all black with soot and things all over him. And he took that Nabi Brahma and he put it inside a mridanga drum and he carried it back to Puri. And they say that time that was the first Navakalavram ceremony of Lord Jagannath. And it's been taking place ever since then. And there's so much ritual and so much detail about it. That's part of the wonderful thing about Lord Jagannath. He's Aisvarja, Madhurja, Yugala Milan. He's a combination of both opulence and sweetness. We find both Smarta Vichar and Goswami Vichar within him. So that's a very brief comment. Is that helpful, Krishna Balan Prabhu?
Yeah, that's very helpful. And this is mentioned by Sanatana Goswami in one of his little.
Yeah, let me find here if I can do it quick.
Oh, that's very good to understand, Prabhuji, because this is coming from Gaudiya understanding, and kind of authentic,
Yeah. It's a very mysterious thing about Lord Jagannath's Nabi Brahma. We have some very solid evidence about that. Anyway, that's another. It's actually, I can say with almost certainty, absolute certainty, it's a Shalavan Shila from Nepal, and there's very strong support for that. And Sanatana Goswami indicates that by saying there's a pebble inside of it.
Thank you very much. That's very good insight. Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna.
So thank you so much, Prabhu. And there is another question from Amritanand Prabhu. Balram Nitya Prabhu, you could put your hand down. And Amritanand Prabhu, you could go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisance, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for sharing, Prabhu. My question is, does it really matter that Radha Rani needs to be worshipped along with Krishna? Because we learn that she is his Halatni Shakti. And everything, when we say Krishna, it includes Krishna and Krishna's, whatever is Krishna. And there is nothing that is separate from Krishna. So they say no need to worship demigods because you put water to the root, automatically all the demigods get worshipped. So what is the understanding that Radharani needs to be present in her form to worship Krishna?
Well, if I didn't present it that way, then there would be no drama. That's one point. Second point is, though, that actually our Gaudiya Vaishnavas, I'm sure Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he always worshipped Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there was, to my knowledge, he never worshipped any deities of Jagannath. And it was only after his disappearance that one of Madhav Maharaj one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, managed to acquire his Janmastan, his birthplace, which is now the Chaitanya Mat in Jagannath Puri, and they established deities of Subhadra there. But in general, and now there's also in Tripura, there's some deities of Jagannath in one Gaudiya, which were donated by the king. My knowledge, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta never established, and Srila Prabhupada established Jagannath Puri Subhadra. In any case, it's a rare thing for Gaudiya Vaishnavas because we want to worship Radharani. And as you pointed out, Radharani is present everywhere. And there's a nice story in this regard. Prabhupada instructed the devotees to name the deities in east of Kailash in Delhi, Sri Sri Radha Partha Sarati. And that's a little unusual. There were some Gaudiya Math devotees who were complaining about that. How is this Radharani with Partha Sarati? And so one of the devotees came and related that complaint to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada's response was, he said, "Oh, is there some time or some place when Radharani is not present? She's always present." And if you read in the Garga Samhita, there's a whole series of beautiful verses how Radharani is present with Lord Nrsingadev, how Radharani is present with all the Matsya Karma Viraha, and all the different incarnations. She's present in some kind of form. Even when the Lord manifests as a Purusha, as a universe, and she comes as Prakriti. She's always present there, but perhaps in a way that we don't see. I found it interesting too, some years ago when my Guru Maharaj was physically present, one of the head priests of the Radharaman temple came to visit us in ISKCON Bhubaneswar, and I was helping to take care of him, and I was providing things for his puja. And he had a very interesting puja. He had a silver plate, and he would grind some sandalwood paste, and he would take a stick, a tulsi stick, and he would write the name Radha on that silver plate, and that was his puja that he would do every day. And that's interesting because if you may know, in the temple of Radharaman, there's no physical deity of Radharaman. First deities, as we mentioned, Radha, were sent by Maharaj Purushottam Jana. But there's a tradition going way, way back of the pujaris worshiping the name of Radha. They worship Radharani with Radharaman, but in the form of her name or some other way. So you're correct. Radharani is always present there, and we should see like that. I'm just presenting another different kind of.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Amritanand Prabhu, for your question. There's one last question, Prabhu. Govindranandri Mataji is asking on the chat. There is a slide about Sri Kshetra where the term that explained the meaning of Srimati Radharani is there. Could you please share that again?
Yeah, so if she wants, she can take a screenshot of this. This is from chapter 7 of the book Embankment of Separation. It's the first opening words to the chapter called Sri Kshetra Dham. Speaking about why it's called Sri Kshetra, because of the presence of Srimati Radharani. Yeah.
Okay. I think I took a screen print of that, Prabhu, and I'll share with everyone in the temple WhatsApp group. So if there is no other question, we can end here. Prabhuji is so busy preaching in various different places like Ukraine, Hungary, and today he already had a few classes, so don't want to keep him long. But I just want to thank Prabhu from the bottom of our hearts for the research you are doing in the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, and going and researching so many literature and trying to get the facts out. This is a very pertinent question as to what is the relationship between Lord Jagannath and Srimati Radharani, and you put some very strong points and some references wherein the identity of Lord Jagannath is with reference to Srimati Radharani from the Nyasha Mantra and so many other things like the one you're sharing right now from Embankment Separation. So thank you, Prabhu. We just hope that you make yourself, you come to our Sunday channel more and more, and we want to see you more and more in Plainfield, in our temple. A few years back, you came for Snan Yatra, and you gave a very stunning class on that day. So we want you here, and just want to thank you for everything about the class today and your association.
Thank you very much, Hema Jagannath. The devotees that are in New Jersey, they're so wonderful, and I see so many wonderful Jagannath bhaktas and so much bhakti there for Lord Jagannath. It's a wonderful thing to get your association. Thank you.
So
thank you very much, Madhavananda Prabhu. Panchakalpatarubhasya kripa
Sindhu Vayevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.
All glories to His Holiness Gaur Govind Swami Maharaj. Because of his mercy, we are able to draw some mercy from Madhavananda Prabhu. So thank you. All glories to Prabhupada and Gaur Bhakta.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.